Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear Deputy Minister, dear colleagues, I feel very honored to open the E-Infrastructure Reflection Group workshop we are glad to host in the Prague in the framework of Czech Presidency of the Council of the European Union. CESNET, the NIN, but today e-infrastructure provider in the Czech Republic, is the host of this meeting. My name is Jan Gruntorath. I am former director of CESNET, chair of the e-Infra CZ Steering Committee, and national delegate representative of the Czech Republic to e-IRG. I believe that you will learn about e-IRG and its activity during 2 days of the workshop. It was established already in 2003, so next year there will be 20 years anniversary of the e-IRG existence. E-infrastructure are very important component of the ecosystem enabling top quality research and innovation. There are many interesting topics on the agenda of the workshop. I believe that lectures and discussions that will take place in coming 2 days will help to resolve some areas of very complex environment of e-infrastructure. Let me wish you, on behalf of CESNET, very fruitful workshop and enjoyable stay in Prague. And now I would like to give the floor to Deputy Minister of Education, Youth and Sport of the Czech Republic, Professor Radka Vildová. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, dear distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation and for the opportunity to welcome you today in Prague at this e-infrastructure reflection group workshop, organized as one of the last research events during the Czech presidency of the Council of the European Union. Research infrastructures, including e-infrastructures and data infrastructures, have been one of the key priority topics of the Czech presidency research policy agenda in the second semester of this year. That can be illustrated by a number of important research policy documents adopted during the time of the Czech presidency. These are, and I'm sure you know, particularly the Brno Declaration on Fostering a Global Ecosystem of Research Infrastructures, which was launched on the occasion of holding the IRG 2022 conference in Brno this October. And in addition, the EU Competitiveness Council recently adopted the Council conclusion on research infrastructures, setting out the policy orientations for the further advancement of the European research infrastructure ecosystem. The European countries have been facing many grand societal challenges lately, be it the COVID-19 pandemic, the energy and the subsequent financial crisis, or the security crisis. All this have been striking upon us, and the research infrastructure sectors is not an exception. While being a sort of victim of this crisis, research infrastructures are also a part of the solution to these grand societal challenges when providing knowledge-based responses to our common societal and economic needs. Therefore, research infrastructures require our utmost attention, in particular at the current critical times. Besides the overall economic crisis, impacting the research infrastructure sector in a very damaging way, there have also been challenges which the research infrastructures face regardless the turbulent times which we are living in right now. One of these challenges is, among other things, their digitalization. The digital transition of the European economy has been a baseline of nearly all the policy documents realized in the past couple of years. The digitalization is therefore also among the major challenges for research infrastructures. The digitalization is critical for the future development of research infrastructures, for their accessibility, interoperability, as well as for their integration in the European, in global research and innovation ecosystem. Therefore, we shall promote digitalization of research infrastructures throughout their entire life cycle and take measures incentivizing it. It goes without saying that the Infrastructure Reflection Group is one of the key fora to address the topic of these digitalization challenges. Against this background, I sincerely believe that this workshop will contribute to the ongoing debates and will be a success. Dear distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you inspiring talks, enriching debates, and fruitful discussion today and tomorrow. And last but not least, I would like to express my sincerest appreciation to the CESNET Association for having organized this event. Enjoy the workshop. Also enjoy your stay in Prague and enjoy pre-Christmas atmosphere of the Czech capital, and that you are very much for your attention. So enjoy the first snow we are having in Prague today. We are very glad about that, and we feel the Christmas are really coming. So enjoy this time here, enjoy the time of the Christmas, and Happy New Year 2023 from me and my office.
Thank you very much, dear Deputy Minister. And now I will give the floor to the Chair of e-IRG. We have here actually two chairs. One is, let's say, current and one coming. So I will pass the microphone and they will decide who will start.
Thanks, Emilian. I will pass back to the real chair and the current chair. So thank you very much, Jan. Thank you very much for your nice words, for your warm welcome. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to open this e-IRG workshop, and it's the last time for me. As you have heard, I'm stepping down, and the new current chair, Stefan Hanslik, is here with us. And I'd like to say, first of all, thanks to CESNET for what has been done for organizing this workshop, which is not easy. We are in a hybrid format, which is sometimes not so easy to handle with, and we know that it was very well prepared. So thank you very much for you, Jan, your team, and for you as a high deputy, a high-level representative of the government. And thank you also for your words. I'd like now to start officially this workshop. This will be a workshop of 3 sessions or 4 sessions, starting this afternoon. And I'd like to ask my colleagues to show the first slides for the housekeeping rules concerning all the colleagues that are now online. I see there are more than 30 colleagues joining us virtually, and just for them to know, we are here in the room with around 25 other colleagues that are participating to the workshop. To the colleagues who are attending now in the floor, if you want to take the floor, just raise your hand. We will then take notice that you want to express, then have your say. Same rules for the colleagues who are online. So write in the chat, use this possibility. Of course, all the people who are attending here in the room, they can also write in the chat. We will collect these chats. They will be part of this session. And we will address then the questions raised in the chat during the workshop. If you have the floor, please don't hurry. Take your time. We have enough time to answer all questions. This first workshop is about coordination and collaboration among European e-infrastructures. I'd like to remind that this workshop is recorded. We will then make the records accessible through the e-IRG WEC webpage. Please do not activate your microphone and video while we are talking. If you have the floor, of course, then activate your microphone and video. I like to ask you to participate to the survey for a feedback. It's useful for us in order to understand what we can do better for the next workshop. And you can comment on Twitter. The hashtag is published on the screen, or write directly to the e-IRG Secretariat. So I will try now to continue by myself. It works. Thank you very much. So e-IRG is a reflection group. So we fulfill some kind of think tank actions, reflections. Our vision is to facilitate integration in the area of European infrastructures and connected services within and between member states at the European level and globally, which is our intention, this globally. We live in a world of where there are no boundaries, expressly in the world of science and education, and that's why when we start reflections, we do it not only in the European level but also on a global scale. Our mission is to support a coherent, innovative, and strategic European infrastructure policy making, and to foster the development of convergent and sustainable infrastructure services. The infrastructure commons, which were published some years ago, well, 10 years ago, they paved the way for the upcoming EOSC, European Open Science Cloud, and it's closely related to what are now the emerging data spaces. We stressed the role of the national nodes in the implementation of the infrastructure commons and the instantiation of the European Open Science Cloud. Both or the 3 publications are available and accessible at Zenodo. In 2021, we started addressing the good practices of coordination among and across infrastructures and thematic research infrastructures. And this led us to the first white paper we published last year, which will be followed by a second white paper, which will be published by the end of this year and will be available at the beginning of the next year. The white paper 2021 was a follow-up of the work from the IRG national nodes document. Coordination is continuously needed at national level among all players. This was one of the main messages of our chapters. And the second message was that coordination should be expanded within and across countries at institutional level, at regional level, and at EU level. And the upcoming second part will then focus on coordination across areas. So networking, computing, data. I'd like to say again, thank you very much to the program committee. First of all, Jan Gruntorad, who was the chair of the program committee. Volker Beckmann, France, our IRG colleague in France, is following us through Zoom. Panos Agirakis from Greece, our colleague from GRNet. Then Stefan Hanslik, who is sitting here on the left side, IRG colleague from Austria. Marko Bonac from Slovenia. Jan Vibelitz, Fotis Karayannis, Michael Maragakis, Ben Sarugar, all of them from the IRG support program. So thank you very much. We have worked very hard since 7 months in order to prepare these 1.5 days. The first session will focus on coordination and collaboration among European infrastructures. The second session is about the energy crisis and e-infrastructures. Data infrastructures and data spaces will then be the theme of the third session. And at last, we will focus on the interlinking of and interaction between data, publication, and infrastructures. We will now start with the first session. My role should have been to introduce this session. I will now take the floor also for moderating this session along with my colleague Stefan Hanslik, because the two colleagues, the colleagues who were in charge of this, they are blocked by the snow and they will arrive this afternoon later on. So the first session is about coordination and collaboration about among European e-infrastructures. Jan, would you like to have the floor or should I go on? Okay, I go on. So Professor Radka Vildova, Deputy Minister of Education, thank you very much again for your nice speech. The moderator of the session, he will come this afternoon, is Sverker Holmgren, IRG delegate from Sweden. Sweden will take over the presidency next year for the first semester, and they will also organize, our colleagues in Sweden, the celebrations of the 20th year of existence of IRG. The context of this session is the IRG white paper addresses the coordination and collaboration between European infrastructures. The so-called guiding questions were sent to the infrastructure initiatives, and the analysis of the inputs will be now presented. Feedback from policymakers and funders, the infrastructures and the end users was then requested. And for this session, I'd like to introduce and to welcome these colleagues. Fotis Karayannis from the IRG Support Project, Katrin Stöver from GEO, Sergio Andreozzi from EGI, Antti Pursula from EUDAT, Natalia Manola from OpenAir. She will come a little bit later due to the snow. Then Philippe Seger from PRAISE, Ignacio Blanquer from the IOSC Association, Volker Beckmann, IOSC Steering Board, Jana Kolar from ESFRI, and Michel Schuppe from the European Commission. I will now give the floor to Fotis Karayannis.
Thank you, Paolo. And I also got some news from Natalia and Sverker. Their plane landed half an hour ago, so probably they're in the taxi. I sent a link. Maybe they will manage to connect from the taxi to follow. So maybe at the end of towards the end of the session, they will appear here. So thanks, Paolo, for the introduction. My name is Fotis Karagiannis from Innovacts, and I'm a member of the support project for many years. Can I have the pointer? I have been working for infrastructures for many years, since the year 2000, thanks to Vasilis Maglaris, who hired me, persuaded me to be hired at GRNet at that time, and then I had a long, long involvement in infrastructures in several ones, including CESNet, by the way, for the EGI design study. It was then, and many other projects, all big, all major infrastructure initiatives and projects, including ZEAND from GRNet, and also, EGI, PRACE, and others. So Paolo mentioned the infrastructure commons. Oops, what's happening here? So Paolo mentioned the infrastructure commons, which can be considered as a foundation of IOSC. And this can be defined as the integrated living ecosystem of resources and services, along with the policy and governance that is open, user-friendly, and accessible to European researchers and scientists, and continuously adapts to the changing requirements of research and science. So this is, let's say, the commons like electricity and water for the researchers. And you see the old picture from the original IRG publication at the bottom, with the different layers, networking, computing, data, and the tools and services, and the thematic, the vertical. So the horizontal layers, and then the vertical thematic ones you see as silos somehow. By the way, the term infrastructure includes data infrastructures. There has been a bit of confusion during the IOSC times that it's separate, but infrastructures include, of course, networking, computing, and data, and the related services. Doesn't work. Oops. So we can say that IOSC can be defined as having two main parts: the infrastructure commons and the open science part. And in December 2014, as part of the consultation of a work program for 2015 and 16, we also, as the support project of IRG, contributed to this IRG commons and expanded the idea of the commons with a concrete framework for the marketplace. So if you see this document, back then it includes a lot of let's say, elements of the IOSC, including, let's say, the catalog of services, the search facility, having both research and commercial services, compliance, and somehow the rules of participation, AI, multiple views of the portal for national, regional, and EU, let's say, participants, and so on. Regarding the political background of of this cooperation and coordination, there have been many, let's say, recommendations at the highest political level, the Competitiveness Council conclusions. Already before, there were in 2018, but I here list some of the recent ones, and we heard also by the Deputy Minister. There are more on the Brno Declaration, and also the Council conclusions on the recent ones on the research infrastructures. Maybe Jana Kolar will mention this as well. So on the new era in 2020, there was a recommendation to increase the level of national and European coordination, in particular on RISE and infrastructures. On the Pact for Research and Innovation, also soon. And this is, you know, the previous work of e-IRG. I think Paolo also covered this. The focus of the e-IRG work before this paper was mostly at the national level with the roadmap in 2016, the national notes document, the e-IRG white paper last year. And now we have this shift of focus towards the European coordination and collaboration. So a bit of background for the white paper. Some infrastructures are already in production for decades, like Giant, but considerable developments in computing and data infrastructures took place in the last, let's say, 5, probably more, to 15 years. For EGI, PRAISE, EU Data, OpenAir, you see all the major initiatives. And of course, in the more recent years, 2 significant initiatives have been launched and are now well underway, the European Open Science Cloud and the Euro HPC joint undertaking. Coordination across these players is mostly ad hoc, possibly as part of EOSC a bit more, but still at an early stage. So we feel that some intervention and recommendations from e-IRG would be welcome at this point. So the topic is about bridging the identified cooperation and coordination gaps, reflecting on the above issues, providing concrete advice and recommendations, contributing towards increasing cooperation and coordination. And of course, this will be beneficial for the end users in the long run with the provision of integrated user-friendly services, you know, easing their work. So that they can focus on the actual research and not on the tools and infrastructures. It's interesting to mention that already almost 10 years ago, vision, and I think that there are infra-serve calls still, innovation, the next generation of services, and also, you know, the coordination and strategy setting. So we'll be focusing more on the first point in this white paper. So some words about the process. There was a dedicated meeting with the Commission in December 2021 about the coordination, and we got the views and we had some slides. I don't have much time. There have been some concrete slides from both Michel Soup that we'll hear later on, but also from Lina Munari at that time. There was also an informal link established with the EOSC steering board in September, and there have been some joint meetings between a working group of e-IRG and the EOSC steering board. There were 2 sessions organized at the May workshop, which was online one under the French EU Presidency, and a specific one on cross-infrastructure collaboration and coordination, and the major infrastructure initiatives were invited to reflect on this topic. And then a questionnaire was prepared and sent to all infrastructures in August this year, and we got answers. The first batch was received in September and the second batch in November. Everybody's too busy. So we just completed the analysis, in fact, last week, and the paper will be discussed on Wednesday at the e-IRG delegates meeting. So this is really fresh, and there is no official opinion yet of e-IRG, just presenting here the analysis from the support team. So first of all, the respondents are all the invited ones besides Euro HPC. So all invited, let's say, stakeholders responded: EGI, the EOSC Association, the EOSC Steering Board, EU-DAT, GEANT, Open Air, and PRAISE. We have been promised an answer from EUR-HPC. They have been very busy also this week. I think last week was their governing board meeting. But they provided some input during the e-IRG workshop and also the EGI conference, the closing plenary. There was also a session on this topic. So starting with the analysis, the first major area of questions was about, this strategy setting, coordination, and the creation of an infrastructure umbrella forum of representatives of the major infrastructure stakeholders. So the vast majority of responses are positive, covering the whole spectrum of infrastructures, including open scholarly communications, but of course, clear definition of roles and coordination with existing bodies is required. The EOSC Steering Board proposed to use existing channels for this forum, like the EOSC Association or the ESFRI Stakeholder Forum, or a joint ESFRI EOSC task force that probably will be created, but this was mentioned in their answer. Regarding representation of users of the user community in this forum, this was also favored, but of course, having some good representation of the huge communities is quite difficult, and different thematic communities. So there were comments saying that possibly having an advisory role and being domain agnostic, neutral in a sense. So this needs to be discussed. Possibly, ESFRI can, through its involvement, the stakeholder forum can take this form, but this is, of course, for discussion. There was a question about a separate technical operational forum to complement this strategy forum. And there have been mixed answers on this. Some were positive, some negative. Some technical aspects, however, can be possibly included in the main strategy forum. The second main area of questions was the compatible policies, interoperable services, and operational aspects, in particular between EOSC and EUR-HPC, which is one of big area, and whether these two can be federated, can federate the data and services for the benefit of the end users. Again, mixed answers. This is quite difficult. This is important, but probably should happen in a next phase. This probably is the conclusion from this from the answers. And then regarding compatible policies and interoperability of services, and whether these services can be integrated in a federated portal, again, priority is on each of the two areas first, within EOSC and within EUR-HPC, and then before, let's say, attempting to work together. A concrete example where this is used across, is probably interoperable and used across the two areas, is the authentication authorization infrastructure. This is a success story, let's say. Everybody was positive about this. But probably this is one of the early exceptions where we have some, let's say, good progress. So besides being positive, there were comments that there are already multiple providers and slow progress in some areas, especially when there are, services from different providers, and how to, let's say, transparently move from one provider to the other. This needs quite some more work. Continuing on the same area, there was a question about resource access models, which are different for HPC, which is based on peer review evaluation, and HTC, which is much, let's say, easier. So this is still early. The main point from the answers is that it's still early, but there is some work, for example, from PRAISE on this, having a lightweight peer review evaluation for artificial intelligence resources. And Yes, so this somehow bridges the gap, but you know, this is only a first example. Regarding the EU Charter of Access, there was a question about coordinating inputs to the EU Charter of Access from all infrastructures. Everybody was very positive. Of course, this is up to you know, research infrastructures and ESFRI to be discussed. But I think the main point was that the Charter of Access could benefit from coordinated inputs. Regarding coordination and cooperation with industry and data spaces, the answers were that these are important areas, but probably the priority is in the next phase. Also, this is part of the EOSC area. Then other areas, we heard about a cross-infrastructure help desk for technical support and also joint training delivery planning. So these areas of a common help desk and training, I think, are important. And also the so other topics raised were harmonization of infrastructure access, interoperability, and for standards, APIs, architectural aspects, data security practices and tools for sensitive data, and so on. So another area was on cost and business models, funding and sustainability, and there were questions about the infrastructures having cost models and methodologies to track costs. There were mixed answers. Some are, let's say, more advanced, some less advanced. So more work is required, but this is not easy for the research community. Sometimes the bills are included. So, for example, energy bills are included in universities and so on. Then regarding the development of lightweight methodology, again, mixed answers. Understanding the cost of each provider, of course, is crucial for their future sustainability and business model. So this is also needed for EOSC core and exchange. There was a first effort during the previous phase of EOSC, but I think this is also very important for EOSC. And we don't know what's happening with the EUR-HPC. I guess they should be working on this also. Regarding collecting and sharing best practices and different approaches, I think everybody was very positive on this. All answers were very positive, and this can also contribute to transparency and understanding also by the funders. Regarding business models and state funding, all infrastructures said that they're working in this direction. So other points regarding barriers and obstacles for cross-infrastructure activities, there was a big list of points raised, different legal and funding environments, dependencies of projects with, you know, let's say some years of funding cycles, administrative barriers rooted in the funding of resources that govern their usage, and you know, cross-border usage of resources has some limitations. Fragmented environment, many infrastructures, many services, different types of actors, from networking to hardcore computing to scholarly communication. So with different priorities and policies, lack of long-term technical support and funding for customization of existing solutions, different or lack of common coordinated business models, and so on. So other areas affected by coordination, I think the main one is towards the end users, you know, and the provision of integrated, easy-to-use services. In other areas were increased speed of adoption, common outreach towards communities, cost saving. There was an idea of joint R&D programs. This came, I think, from EGI for new services, for the introduction of new services, innovative services, and next generation services. And one common challenge was the talent shortage and keeping, let's say, the personnel in the research community, of course, with usually lower salaries compared to industry. So this was the short analysis. The proposed approach that we can get out of this analysis is, and also let me say that this topic was also discussed at the EGI closing plenary, at the EGI conference 2022 closing plenary, where we had GEANT, EGI, UDAT, OpenAir, and EuroHPC. They were talking that there is ad hoc coordination currently, and more structured and framed approach is needed. So it appears that this infra forum is favored. And what was said also at the AGI conference was that a lightweight structure and with a progressive approach is preferred. From the answers that we got, there is interest from GEANT, EGI, UDAT, OpenAir, and PRAISE. So these were confirmed, I think, already at the EGI conference. I also got an update from the EOSC Association that they may be interested although they are not in infrastructure, they may be interested in participating, but this needs to be discussed at the board. And we have Ignacio, I think, also he will reflect afterwards. So there is a draft of the white paper only last week. There were some first section, of course, earlier, but now the full analysis was drafted only last week. So this will be discussed, of course, today, and also at the closed delegates meeting on Wednesday. And the recommendations, and of course, we will publish this broadly. Now, this was only sent very late last week to the infrastructures only, but this, of course, will be published. And the actual contributions from the infrastructures will be included as annexes. So we got already the okay from several infrastructures, but not all. And we plan to wrap up by the end of the year, as Paolo said, if depending, of course, on the discussions at the IRG, maybe early next year, the IRG white paper will be published. So some overall conclusions. Cooperation and coordination is required across the whole federation chain at institutional, national, in some cases regional and EU level. So now we are focusing with this paper at the EU level. Infrastructures are willing to start with an infrastructure forum, umbrella forum for coordination and strategy setting. Infrastructures may need to go beyond the vested interest and comfort zones. This was also said at the ESFRI stakeholder forum, and I think this is also valid for this community. So ultimately, this will benefit the end users. And one provocative statement, whether federation like in EOSC is enough, or we should start talking more about integration at least towards 2030. With some, personalized dashboards integrating for end users, integrating all data and services with, being smart with artificial intelligence and, things that the industry is doing. And of course, this is part of the EOSC Future project, and we hope to hear some good news. And the recommendations will come after the feedback. There are some draft recommendations currently, but these need to be updated after this brewing and discussions taking place here. And I think this is the last slide. Thank you very much.
So Fotis, thank you very much for this great work and this great analysis. It wasn't easy during the summertime, and I thank you all the participants to the survey for their contributions. I'd like now to give the floor for some short statements from the e-infrastructures. I'd like to start with Katrin Stöver. My question is, how do we organize this? With this microphone? Yes, so I'd like the colleagues to join the panel. Katrin Stöver, then Sergio Andreozzi, then Natalia Manola, please. Yes, please. Philippe Seger, I guess he's online. Then Ignacio Blanquer from Spain. Zverker is here. Where is he? Oh, Zverker, please. No, not your fault. It's the plane. So welcome in Prague. So Ignacio Blanquer, then Volker Beckmann, and Jana Kolar. So some short statements from my side. Katrin Stöva has belonged to Géant's team since 1997, holding various positions as the organization has grown and developed, always with a specific focus on growing the geographic reach of the Géant network and the deepening of the global research and education collaboration for the benefit of the global research and education community. Since 2020, Katrin carries the overall responsibility for the Géant marketing, communications, and design teams, as well as Géant EU liaison team. Katrin is member of the CIAP of the Human Brain Project, as well as the Scientific Council of the German NFID. So Katrin, the floor is yours for a short statement.
Okay. Thank you very much, Paolo. I'm very happy to be here in Prague at this e-IRG workshop during the Czech presidency. Very glad to see my old colleague, Jan Grunturat, also here with us today, and that so many of you have made it through the snow. Géant, as you all know, is the product of a merger between Dante and Terena, and we have existed now for 30 years. And this pan-European collaboration between research and education networks has grown and matured over this very long time.
Non, je t'écoute. Oui.
Please mute. We have grown geographically, but we have also grown in what is the requirements on this pan-European research and education networking backbone. Today, we see our traffic increasing by 30% year on year. And it is thanks to continuous European Union funding and investment into our network that Géant, and by that, Europe's research, science, innovation, and education is future-proof for the next 15 years. When the current upgrade to our network is fully rolled out, we will be able to offer 100 gigabit per second everywhere across Europe and the backbone, and that will include the ability to support terabit networking. So this is a long history of collaboration that has matured and stabilized in Europe. When I joined in 1997, we had 11 NRANs connected to the backbone. Today, it is 38, plus the colleagues and friends up in NordUnet. Globally, in 1997, we had 2 international connections, one to Japan and one to the United States. Today, we have over 120 countries connected into this global R&E research and education fabric. But our collaboration has gone further. We have over many years, I think you said 5 to 15 years here, had ongoing dialogue with EGI, PRAISE, EUDAT, OpenAir. And specifically for the last 5 years, we have been doing putting a lot of our time and effort into the establishment of EOSC and the EOSC Association. I myself have worked for 2 years on the executive board of EOSC, and I was a founding director. And also, as your paper is writing, at this point in time, we're studying EuroHPC together with the European NRANs. So collaboration, coordination is key, and I think we all understand that. But what I think really happens today is interdependence. There is interdependence that needs to be established between the e-infrastructures because it is a reality. We are interdependent. Coordination is probably no longer good enough. Everything today is digital. Science is digital. Digital is completely pervasive, and it requires a completely new way of working together and openness. We are asked to scale up, we are asked to share, and we need to support Europe in this, because in the end, this is a global race where Europe would like to stay in the lead. And that leads me to a few words on funding. It appears that resources continue to be available on the European level, but the rules and the eligibility criteria for Connecting Europe facility or the Digital Europe program, or also the NDICI international funding, are very, very complex. Quantum, the EU backbone, global gateways, and not least Terabit, all have different eligibility criteria, and that is within the Connecting Europe facility program. So if we're not very careful here, this will lead to fragmentation. And if the outcome is increased close coordination on a national and EU level, then I am certain that we really need to step up our coordination and make sure that we all understand that this is a question now of interdependence. So yes, GEANT is in favor of a more strategic and long-term steady dialogue, as your paper calls it very nicely, between the e-infrastructures, and that must include EOSC and EuroHPC. We see the independence and neutrality of e-IRG as important for the success of this dialogue. We need to develop a common vision for the 21st century digital research. How is this conducted? How is it funded? And ultimately, how is it coherently supported by Europe's e-infrastructures? And I would like to thank the e-IRG Forum and Working Group to enable this forum and this ongoing dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Catherine, for this short statement. We will then come back on this during the panel discussion. I see that our colleague from CSC, Antti Pursula, has joined online. Antti, you are welcome. I will now give the floor to Sergio Andreozzi from EGI. He is the head of strategy, innovation, and communications of the EGI Foundation. And in his role, Sergio contributes to strategic planning and execution, governance, and business models for the EGI Federation. He has a long experience in developing international digital infrastructures for research, and also served as a member of the EC Open Science Policy Platform. So Sergio, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, and from the viewpoint of the EGI Federation, so we welcome, first of all, the work done through this white paper that we also hosted in the closing plenary of our EGI conference. In general, the EGI Federation, has been, after 13 years of existence, has been contributing in many ways to not only federate within the type of resources or the computing resources that we, and the capabilities that are part of our network, but also by expanding and making agreements with our peers' infrastructures to make sure that we can better serve the European research area. For instance, in the early phase of the European Open Science Cloud, we have written, co-authored the position paper with the other e-infrastructures and the research infrastructure clusters to direct also and influence and give us our experience as organizations who create and deliver services, and to better influence the directions of this important European initiative. And also we co-developed the EOSCA project together with the UDAT initiative, and also the other research infrastructures. And also during that project, we tightened collaboration with OpenAir and Praise. In general, anyway, these collaborations were more project-based, or where situations were like open events, like conferences or workshops like e-IRG would come us together. We believe that a more systematic approach in these interactions would better help us to increase our impact for research. And as also mentioned by Fotis before, we believe that we should start with a lightweight governance structure, and that's more about the cooperation on identified areas of interest. In these areas of interest, for instance, we see the identification of opportunities in participating in common research innovation programs, or we see the opportunity to coordinate and align on how we support international research communities who require a more integrated access to the various capabilities offered by the infrastructures. And also we think it will be very important to continue formulating position papers, joint position papers together that can inform policymakers on the best way to evolve the direction. And finally, also definitely we will keep aligned in contributing to the implementation and the success of the European Open Science Cloud. Here there are a few important practical points to address when we think about creating this lightweight structure. For instance, one is how we can be agile and still create benefit, but not creating too much overhead additional on top of what we already have in terms of initiatives, forums, and boards, and so on. Also, it would be interesting to discuss how we can structure, for instance, the representation within the e-IRG context. For instance, the e-IRG delegates normally comes from the expression of the countries, of the ministries. And there is the S3 should have an observer role, and would the e-infrastructure also bring a European perspective from the sales delivery into the delegates? That would be, we believe it would be useful. Also at the IRG Association level and the IRG General Assembly, now in the statutes of the IRG Association, research infrastructures are recognized as a pan-European initiatives who can nominate their own mandated organization. Would this also approach be a suitable one for the infrastructures? We believe also that having our European representation would be useful. And also, so these are example of aspects we would like to discuss in the course of this workshop, and also other aspects connected to the paper. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sergio. Sergio, thank you very much. I'd like kindly ask the following speakers to take around 4 minutes each, please, if possible. Next speaker is Antti Pursula. He's online. Welcome, Antti. I guess you are now in Finland, talking from there.
Yes.
And thanks. You've been working at CSC since 2001 as an expert development manager, director of application services, and project director. Your current position is program director for research infrastructures, and the focus of your activities are on research data management, analytics services for biomedical and environmental sectors. Specialties are information technology services, software development, computing, cloud services, big data, and IT infrastructures. So Antti, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I am also nowadays the head of secretariat for EU infrastructure. And this is also the role why I'm now giving the EU views on the topic of this workshop. So first of all, I'd like to thank the e-IRG for organizing this session and for inviting me, and also for your efforts in advancing the coordination among the pan-European e-infrastructures. So as mentioned, I represent the EUDAT collaborative data infrastructure, and EUDAT is the European infrastructure offering data management services for research communities. It is a sustained consortium of 24 members across the European member states. And the EUDAT solutions, they facilitate researchers to make their data fair. And overall, we provide building blocks for the web of fair data. So on the coordination, I would start with saying that we in EUDAT, we support, in general, of course, we support the stepping up of discussions and interactions between the e-infrastructure organizations. This is very welcome, and I think, as outlined by previous speakers, very much also needed to build the European infrastructure services and landscape, and to support the European research and innovation. In EUDAT, we are thinking that the collaboration focus should first be on sharing of experiences, formulating joint views when needed for policies and so on, for example, and in general, facilitating the strategic discussions on the overall role of e-infrastructures in the European landscape, including areas such as the European data spaces and, of course, the European Open Science Cloud initiatives. And overall, we think that the infrastructure forum, or however it would be organized, should be a consensus-based body that is open for pan-European e-infrastructures. So something we are looking for transparency and openness, not to have a closed club. And the forum or similar, it should have a advisory role, of course, so that it would give then valuable input to be considered by the governance of the e-infrastructures. Yes, and indeed these strategic level discussions and how to position the e-infrastructures in the context of data spaces and IRG is something of a great importance. One aspect we think in EUDAT is that starting in a lightweight format would maybe be a practical way to go forward. For example, as a kind of a roundtable discussions, for example, to really initiate the cross e-infrastructure discussions. And then, of course, we are open to deepening the collaboration and take it from there to more increased collaboration and coordination. So this is the short statement from EUDAT. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to discuss more in the panel at the end of the session.
Antti, thank you very much. A virtual applause, and also here from the floor. Next speaker will be Ignacio Blanquer from Spain. He's a professor of the Computer System Department in Valencia since 1999. He has been a member of the research group on grid and high-performance computing on the Institute of Instrumentation for Molecular Imaging since 1993, and becoming the leader of his group in 2015, and the vice director of in 2019. He's currently the coordinator of the Spanish network of e-science and serves as an expert to the Spanish Ministry of Science in the areas of e-science. He's also the Spanish delegate of e-IRG. Ignacio, the floor is yours.
So thank you very much, Paolo, for your kind introduction. Thank you very much for inviting me to this panel. So first, as you know, the EOC Association represents the EOC community in this EOC co-programmed partnership that has been signed between the association and the commission. So EOC Association has close to 250 members and observers, more than 450 experts collaborating in task forces. So it's clearly a place in which the collaboration is fostered and takes place. Moreover, one of the objectives, the strategic objectives that are depicted on the strategic research and innovation agenda is the federation of research infrastructure. So we are not an e-infrastructure by ourselves, but we understand clearly the role of the e-infrastructures in the implementation of the IRG. We have said many times that data is a primary focus, but data without resources to be stored and processed cannot have the value that it should. So we want to, in this part of the forum of the infrastructure, there's also several points that are of interest for the association. We are not only representing users, we have a voice also in the definition. I mean, when I mean EOC community in general, in the definition and the implementation of services and the provisioning of services. And we have seen that there are a lot of activities in the infrastructure and also on other activities funded by the Commission, like the EOC procurement, the EOC projects that are implementing the core and the exchange, the procurement of middleware for the data spaces, in which there is a strong need of coordination. So we've seen that this forum could help a lot on aligning the views, having this interoperability. The role that we can have as the EOC association, since we are horizontal, is to bring together all these requirements, put all the points in discussion, and bring the view of our experts and our members in the discussion and in the documents that could be defined. So we also, I think that there are many ways of implementing this forum, and we will be happy to help.
Thank you, Ignacio. Also for you, virtual applause. And I thank the floor for appreciating the statement of Ignacio. Natalia Manola, now we are back in Prague. Natalia Manola has joined us here in Prague. She's a research associate in Athena Research and Innovation Center and in the University of Athens at the Department of Informatics and Telecommunications. She's the managing director of Open Air since 2009, a pan-European infrastructure supporting open access in all scientific results. She's the coordinator of Open Minded, an infrastructure on text and data mining, and is now involved in the implementation of ELIX, the Greek infrastructure for research. She has expertise in open science policies and implementation, and she served in the Open Science Policy Platform, an EC high-level advisory group to commissioners, MOEDAS, to provide advice about the development and implementation of open science policy in Europe. Natalia has also served in the EC Future Emerging Technology Advisory Group. Natalia, the floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation and the great initiative of e-IRG. I have to make a connection. I don't have anything to do with ELIX-UGR, so I'm not sure where this came from, but that's Helix. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So about a few words about Open Air before I start about the coordination. So Open Air is a scholarly communication infrastructure, and when we think about scholarly communication, we think about publications, but that's old story. The trend now and the emerging in the past 10 years is that scholarly communication is about exchanging any kind of research information from the beginning of when research is being planned to the end when it's being shared and published. So Open Air, we have a portfolio of about 15 services that we support researchers and research institutions to share, to discover, share, and monitor data. Now, I think what I would like also to say is that scholarly communication also is about federating these things, these infrastructures at the local institutions, and it's also about connecting. So as you can see, I think you know what Catherine and Sergio said is about federation and connecting, but it just happens at different levels. So we all kind of have horizontal services. And I think what is imperative here to think about is how we can coordinate, but not how we can coordinate in terms of what we do, what we offer, but how this vision on digital science is changing and how we can coordinate our services to better serve the users. And of course, you know, everyone says about the users, but this is something that we need to be practical about. So we see already working with the rest of the infrastructures, we see already connections, we see already complementarities, we see overlaps, and we can see how to use each other's services or how to connect or how to interoperate our services. And this is something that is very, very valuable for the researchers and the institutions. So how to bring this coordination forward? We're talking about the lightweight governance. I'm not sure what a governance is in this case. You know, I heard about structures, governance, so what it is. I think it has to start lightweight, whatever it is, and then go deepen. But we cannot afford to wait for ages or years to deepen this collaboration, because we have already started it with projects. We are connecting our services, we're connecting our training, we're connecting our communication. We are doing that on an ad hoc basis. So strategic needs to come first, and then very soon after that, I think we need to see how we commit in a more close collaboration without these interdependencies, as Kathleen said, is, you know, making sure that, you know, these interdependencies stay at a loose level, but at least we know what each other is doing, who are our users, and what we are offering them.
Natalia, thank you very much. Thank you for raising these points. We will then come to these points during the panel discussion. Philippe Seger, he's following us online. He's the head of the European High Performance Computing projects for JANCI, the French HPC and quantum computing research infrastructure, where he manages the contribution of the French partners to the PRAISE projects. He's member of PRAISE Technical Board, Management Board, Board of Director, and Strategy Working Group, and he was work package leader of the PRAISE pre-commercial procurement on whole system design for energy efficient HPC. Co-work package leader of the work package in charge of supporting the organization of the IR and stakeholder management, and the management board of the public procurement of innovation. PP I4 HPC. So, Philippe, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Is it okay? Okay. So about PRAISE and PRAISE part on this community work, I would like to say first that we have already built some memorandum of understanding with, I think, almost all the partners present within this panel. We have a memorandum of understanding with EGI, with EUDAT, with GEANT. GEANT is part, GEANT and EUDAT are part of the project PRAISE 6IP. And we have also a memorandum of understanding and concrete action with many other research infrastructure. For instance, we are working also with CERN and with the SKA, the Square Kilometer Array Telescope, in order to be able to provide HPC services to this community who will need access to huge computation in a new manner. So this cooperation at the heart of our organization and to what we are doing. If we look at that from a user point of view, I would say that they don't mind so much to know if the services they are using are labeled PRES or EGI or EUDAT or EOSC. We have a scientific steering committee giving us feedback, and we have also an industrial advisory committee. And what they are telling us is that the ecosystem, the European ecosystem, is far too complex for them to understand. What they would like to do is to be able to use in a seamless way to HTC resources. From time to time, they need to be able to access resources for being able to test and to do some little computation or to do some porting, and to be able then to scale up for research needs. And then they would like also to be able to move that into operation, and to be able to to move some of their result into operational resources. That's their need, and that's what we need to offer to them. And so I think that the work that e-IRG is doing with this new white paper is very important for this community. And if we look at that from a governance point of view, well, I think there are some rules that could be important to remind, to keep into account. Well, one of the first rule is the one who is paying is the one who decide. So in our context, EURHPC as the funding agency is the one who is paying for half of the price of the procurement of the future system. So they need to have their say and to provide and to give us their advice and their leadership, and how they want to see the coordination of our infrastructure in the future. So I would be very interested to hear about their strategy and where they would like to go, and what they would like to do with us, with e-IRG, and to participate to this forum, because as they are paying for the system, they need to have some role in that governance. But in the modern area on which we are, we need to consider the whole stakeholder, and we need to pay attention to one of our most important stakeholders, who are our users. And so we need to combine, I would say, high-level strategic view and a bottom and a top-down approach. What we are willing to do at the European level, as it has been said also, we are not here to compete with each other, and we are not here to compete with providing different resources. The competition is at world scale level, and we are competing, I would say, in a geographical way. We are competing with some other continent, let's say United States of America or China, but we are also competing with other providers of resources. Providers of resources such as the GAFAM will provide and are already providing access to some resources. They are providing it for free at some level. Then they are not non-profit organization. So after having trying it like in a premium business model, you have it for free at first and then you have to pay. But what is most important is that if we move to that kind of services, we will lose something more important than the monetary resources allocated to paying these resources. It will be our skills. It's very convenient to use and to do very fast prototyping with that kind of resources. Well, the only issue is that the more you are doing that, the more you are losing the skills and the more you are using the sovereignty and the independence, which is also very important for Europe. So if we want to do that, we need to have also to combine that with a bottom-up approach coming from our users, the whole community of our users, and we are sharing two things. We are sharing the same values, thinking that we are stronger together, and we are also sharing the same users. That's the same users who are in need of using the network of giant, the data services from OpenAir, from UDAT, and the HTC services from e-IRG. When people who are doing research these days, they need all these services. So our role is to be able to find a good governance, to be able to decide on concrete action. It has been also mentioned that the work that we are doing, for instance, working on AI. AI is a big subject. People need to be able to be recognized on different infrastructure and in a seamless way. This is something that we are working also with the EOSC. They need also to be able to access some small resources just by pushing a button. For other bigger resources and access to most costly resources, well, they will still need to go through some peer review. The access to this peer review need also to be the more seamless as possible and the more transparent as possible. And I think that's what we need to continue to work together in the framework of EOSC, and also hand in hand with Euro HPC when they will be able to provide us their view on this issue. And that's what I have to say. So if you have questions, I would be happy to answer.
So thank you, Philippe, and applause. We really appreciate your contribution. We remark that there are some questions in the chat. Maybe there are also some experts from the panel or other speakers who are following it and could directly address them. Otherwise, we will then recap afterwards. So the last two speakers for their contributions, Jana Kolar and Volker Beckmann. Jana Kolar is the chair of ESFRI and the executive director of research infrastructure, CERIC. She has a broad range of expertise ranging from policy development and implementation to research and innovation. Among others, she was Director General of Science and Technology at the Ministry in Slovenia, a member of the governing board of the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, and was chairing the board of Slovenia's Technology Agency, as well as the board of Slovenia's Research Agency. She was a member of the ERA Council Forum Austria, a high-level expert body advising the Austrian ministry responsible for science and research. So thank you, Jana, for joining us. Jana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for presentation. I understand we are short on time, so it could have been very short, very much shorter. but thank you very much. Also for the invitation to this meeting. Now I will try to be finished within the 4 minutes that you have foreseen for the presentation, but still briefly, I will introduce ESFRI because this is why I'm invited here. So ESFRI is a strategy forum on research infrastructures composed of national representatives and European Commission. In this, it's very simple, very similar to e-IRG. In fact, it's been established 1 year before the e-IRG, so it has 20 years now, which is also what you see on my background. Now, ESFRI's task is to support strategy-led approach to policy making in Europe. And its outputs include a periodic roadmap of research infrastructures. Then, for example, landscape analysis, which includes also e-infrastructures, and, for example, monitoring of ESFRI infrastructures. And so far, the roadmap itself has has an ambitious agenda of 25 billion so far over the 20 years. Now, coming back to the topic of the discussion, first of all, let me say something about research ESFRI infrastructures and e-research infrastructures. So the definition of research infrastructures is in European law, that's in Horizon regulation. And it includes e-infrastructures, which are research infrastructures. On the other hand, especially through the development of ESFRI, all research infrastructure, be it physical or virtual, have an e-infrastructure component, which is linked to offering at least the data when your physical infrastructure, for example, to the users in addition to the other services. Now, the digital world, as we heard earlier, is developing rapidly, and it's very difficult to keep pace with this. Now, for this, in this slide, I also see the repetitive invitations and messages from policymakers in the various fora, for example, through Council conclusions last year and this year, through ERA Action 8, through ERAC, to increase cooperation either between research infrastructures and e-infrastructures. Usually EOSC is mentioned there, or research infrastructures and EOSC. Now, ESFRI actually has some current activities. Of course, we are cooperating already, and research and e-infrastructures already cooperate as well. So just to mention some of the ESFRI activities which are relevant for also e-IRG. So e-IRG is standing observer in ESFRI meetings. ESFRI involves e-needs where relevant in its activities. For example, we ask for e-needs of all applications of potential future ESFRI projects during the roadmap application. We also ask for e-needs, elaboration of e-needs in the monitoring questionnaire. So now when we are starting with monitoring of all ESFRI infrastructures, we are asking how they deliver on EOSC and what are their needs with respect to e-infrastructures. I think this is why Fotis at the beginning mentioned that ESFRI might be the source of information of what users need from e-infrastructures in the proposed forum of e-infrastructures. But this is, of course, to be further elaborated. I don't think ESFRI is the right body, but we can discuss this we'll discuss this in the next few months. Now, in addition, e-infrastructures are included in ESFRI landscape analysis because we do have strategic working group, which also addresses e-infrastructures. That's our DIGIT group. Now, when it comes to the white paper and cooperation within the e-infrastructure community, now the key, my opinion is that the key objective is to contribute to the quality of the user service. They do not care whether it's a physical or a digital infrastructure. They're just interested that it works as well as possible, hopefully seamlessly. Now, regarding the e-infrastructure umbrella forum, I should say that none of this was actually discussed with my ESFRI colleagues. because this is something that we will do over the next probably half a year. So my personal opinion is that it would be excellent to have e-infrastructure umbrella forum, and that is also because ESFRI would also need it, because what we also discussed today, we had an ESFRI plenary morning forum this morning, and we have discussed how best to collaborate with our stakeholders. Now, in the first level, our stakeholders are research infrastructure, and this includes e-infrastructures. And we are involving them through various activities, but today we particularly discussed whether to involve it e-infrastructure umbrella organizations also in the work of the forum, for example, in the various drafting groups, and occasionally, for example, when it's relevant on case-by-case basis in the ESFRI meetings. But for this, what we need is basically umbrella organizations. We can't invite 100 different research organizations, research infrastructures. So having an interlocutor in the forum of e-infrastructure umbrella forum would be very welcome. Stakeholders are not just relevant for us, they're relevant across this kind of organizations, across the new era. Also in the ERA forum, the umbrella organizations are represented. So it is an important way nowadays to include opinions of our stakeholder community. Now, further collaboration beyond this e-infrastructure umbrella forum, I would like to say that ESFRI has a range of activities because we try to improve the conditions for research infrastructures in general, which are relevant also for e-infrastructures, which offers the possibility of closer engagement also with, for example, e-IRG. Now, this would be, we have activities, for example, on access to research infrastructure, which you mentioned is relevant, on financing, how to make research infrastructures more sustainable, what kind of funding instruments, in this case, are used on national level to support infrastructure. On energy challenges, we just sent around the questionnaire to research infrastructures today, and PRAISE and EGI will receive it probably today, because you are a member of at least one umbrella organization that I know, and that's ERF, which will be distributing this information. Following the Council conclusions on ERA of last year and ERA Action 8 and the recent ERAC discussion, which is all in your white paper, and Fotis touched on a few things. Mechanism for further cooperation between e-IRG and ESFRI, and also potentially physical and virtual research infrastructures are to be elaborated. But for this, we will need to take a few additional months because the things were somewhat delayed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jana, for your contribution. Thank you very much. Our last speaker now, before we will then give the floor to the European Commission, is Volker Beckmann. Volker, since 2020, Volker is program manager for the European Open Science Cloud, the French Ministry for Higher Education and Research. In this position, he's representing France, e.g. on the, for example, on the IOSC steering board, the e-IRG, and serves on the Horizon Infra Program Committee. Since 2022, he's the co-chair of the IOSC steering board. From 2016 to 2020, he was scientific director for computing and data science of CNRS, EN2P3 in France, and he was also work package leader in the IOSC pilot project and in IOSC Pillar. He also served as EGI council member and was special advisor on IOSC matters at CNRS. So Volker, please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thanks, Paolo, for the introduction, and thanks for giving me the word. So a lot of challenges have been already mentioned, so I'm thankful to all the speakers who laid out the difficult landscape we are dealing with. So different than other speakers, I'm presenting a point of view which is not so much in favor in creating an e-infrastructure forum and umbrella organization. I would like to point out that this is not the opinion of the whole EU steering board, because we didn't have time to collect all opinions. So this is just the opinion of the co-chairs with the help of Michel Schoup, who is going to explain then in the next presentation if I forgot something here. So why are we not so much in favor of that? We think that we have a lot of governance structures already in place. And as Philip pointed out, who pays governs. So if we think of another governance structure, it's going to be very difficult. As Jana pointed out, users don't care about the governing structure, they care about that things work. And we have in place the ERA forum, the EOS governance, we have the ESFRI forum, we have e-IRG as an acknowledged think tank in place to give advice. So rather than yet meeting the same colleagues in another forum, because many of us have more than 2 of these groups already as a role as delegate, we would rather favor a joint group to be formed by Commission, ESFRI, EOS, and potentially by the e-IRG to coordinate relevant joint ESFRI and EOS activities. And that's also part of the EU Council conclusions of December 2nd of this year, to foster this collaboration and to improve that. On the suggestion for a technical or more operational forum, we would like to point out that in the Horizon Infra 23-24 work program, there is a coordination and support action to provide a robust governance structure, coordination and maintenance of the EOS interoperability framework. This might answer some of these questions. So these were my 4 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Volker. Thank you for your contribution. We really appreciate it. So, Michel, are you still here? I see you're here. Yes. Okay, that's fine.
Do you hear me?
Before I give you the floor, Michel, just a few words from my side concerning the organization. So we are late on time. This means we will shorten the break. We will not short the contribution and not the discussions. We will have a break of just 10 minutes. So we will then have enough time for the panel discussion and your contribution now, Michel. Michel Schoup is senior expert and team leader on the European Open Science Cloud within the Open Science Unit of the European Commission's Directorate General for Research and Innovation. He joined the European Commission in 1998. For more than 20 years, he has been responsible for the development of R&I policies and the management of EU research framework programs in the fields of Earth observation, global observing and forecasting systems, ICT for crisis management, web sensors for the monitoring of the environment, and environmental technologies for water supply. So, Michel, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Paolo, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the nice introduction. Thank you also to e-IRG for initiating this process of the white paper 2022. I believe this area is really tackling important issues. And when I see the panel today, I see that we have a very good participation with many important organizations in Europe around the table. So that's excellent. Now, regarding the statement, I will not, of course, do any statement on the paper. We have not seen the paper yet, but some comments related to the questionnaire that you have shared amongst the community. The first message I'd like to give is to highlight the clear political demand by the Council to consolidate the European research infrastructure ecosystem. And we have to do this by connecting existing and new European and national research infrastructure, including e-infrastructures. I think this message, as underlined by Jana, by Fotis, came out very clearly in the last 2 years, in 21, in the Pact for Research and Innovation, also on the conclusions on the ERA governance and the ERA policy agenda, also in the context of the last conclusions under the Czech presidency on research infrastructures. And I'd like to quote one of the recitals of these conclusions, which states that the Council encourages Member States and the Commission to provide incentives to research infrastructure operators to do what? To continue networking, clustering, associating, and if appropriate, to develop scenarios for integrating and even merging their facilities and research infrastructure capacities and capabilities across scientific disciplines and research domains at the regional, national, and European level. So sorry if the sentence is very long. This is typical jargon for a conclusion. But reference is made to integration. And I think that's a major issue that we are facing in the European research infrastructure landscape, and that we are trying to tackle with the e-IRG. It's this level of integration. And I was happy to hear Catherine referring to interdependencies. I think that that's really an important keyword to be discussed with the panel. The second message is that, therefore, we need for a systematic approach at EU level. We need this to address the societal challenges we want to answer. We need this to ensure efficiency, coherence, and possibly also economies of scales. We have many users, some of them do require the same things. So we have to see whether any research infrastructure in Europe has to develop the same underlying service layers. That's a question which remains, and there might be economies of scale coming from this. There was a meeting of ERAC in September, which was also asking to foster interconnection between digital and research infrastructures. So I think the political message is clear. We need to connect, to interconnect further. We need a systematic approach across the various levels. And this is necessary to cope with the fragmentation we have. I'm just shortening my introduction and my statement because many things have been said by the previous speakers. One point, of course, is the user dimension. If we want to find commonalities and address them jointly, we have to put the researcher and its needs into the center of the discussion. And this was also mentioned by Jana. The users are not should not focus on infrastructures and tools. They should really focus on the research questions they have to address. So it's key to be able to compose multiple services and to integrate multiple fair data sets so that new workflows can be designed. And I think this is the whole essence of what we try to do with the e-IRG. Of course, there is no one size fits all, and this is why we are going for an e-IRG federation, a kind of system of systems with many providers. And that's why we need a multi-stakeholders approach. It was already said by previous speakers, especially by Volker, that we already have a e-IRG governance. Jana introduced the S3 governance. So probably we already have many tools to govern the ecosystem in Europe of research infrastructures. So I'm happy to hear that several speakers are thinking about a lightweight solution. And we would really recommend, as Volker just explained from the e-IRG steering board side, we would really promote an interconnection with existing governance structure. We don't start from scratch, of course. There are many collaborations already existing between European e-infras. But it's not only about e-infras, it's about horizontal generic services being able to integrate and compose with thematic services. So that's also part of the systemic approach we would like to foster. Not isolating e-infras on one side, research infrastructure on another side, and the users on the third side. We have to work together, and that's probably a reason why the IRG Association has been set up as the voice of the research community. So maybe a question for all of us is to see how far the association could support coordination at subgroup levels and then bring all these outcomes into the existing IRG and S3 governance. I think these are the main messages I wanted to give, Paolo. Since we are short of time, maybe good to move to the panel. Just a suggestion. You're the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Michel. Thank you for your contribution. So we now have about 30 minutes of panel discussion as foreseen. I'd like to do a short wrap-up of what has been said until now from my point of view in order to ignite the discussion. So we have now, in this moment, some key players sitting around a common topic. And we have heard about, for example, the relevance of the NRNs at the beginning of this discussion, on how they are relevant because they are connecting, helping to connect through the continents. Then we have heard about the coordination and interdependencies. We always need some kind of coordination, and we have to realize that we are interdependent. We also have heard that the services are very relevant. So infrastructures and data without services does not work. And what is now the role of some kind of coordination in this context? As you see, I'm not addressing the word forum, because maybe this is the result of the discussions. But I'd like to raise the question on how we can coordinate the flow of information and the qualified information. We also have heard words about transparency and openness and bottom-up processes. So I'm asking who are in these bottom-up processes, the players, who is the bottom, or where is the bottom? Now, in order to start the panel discussion, I'd like to resume the main statements I've heard, and then I will then give the floor to the colleagues. So is there a common vision, and how can we develop a common vision? This was raised by Catherine in the first statement. The fact that we need a common vision, I believe it's important. Everybody knows it. Without the common vision, we cannot we cannot choose the direction where to develop. But how can we develop this common vision? And as Natalia said, now the visions are developed in a very, very speedy way. And we have visions. Sometimes we have visions of visions. And then we feel some urgencies. And where are the urgencies? So, for example, the flow of information, the coordination of this qualified information. And how can we then start the monitoring processes of the coordination? And how can this be organized? Coordination of what? I'm just talking about coordination of information of flow of information, but there are some other kinds of coordination which are needed. And again, if we talk about the bottom-up processes, what is the bottom? who are the players, and inside of this question, we have the issue of the transparency and what was raised by Volker. Do we really need, because of transparency, some more forum, some more institutions or institutionalized processes? Or if we need them, why do we need them? And are we ready to address the talent shortage we are experiencing? We are experiencing not a talent shortage in technical issues. We are, for example, experiencing a talent shortage in legal issues, for example. How do we meet this talent shortage? In ethical issues, for example. This is all closely related to the data and services issues. And then, last but not least, what could be the role of the e-IRG in this context? I'm raising this question as a moderator now, and I'm very happy and lucky to have on the floor also the coming chair. So I will now start asking and giving the floor first to Katrin and then to Natalia, and then please raise your hand or I will continue to give the floor. Please, Katrin.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paolo. So I have been scribbling quite a few notes here. I think a lot of very interesting things have come out. I think NRENs across Europe, because every country has one, can play a major role in all of this. We have also seen over the last 5-6 years that many NRENs, for example, here in the Czech Republic, have gone through an internal process, national process of integration, coordination. So I think NRENs are there as a global structure. We reach 120 countries where the NREN model has been a success model. And of course, NRENs are there also because in the end, they are the connection to every single institution. So that I find is very important. The other element that I would like to thank Jana for is the reminder that that e-infrastructures are research infrastructures. I think this is a very important reminder. And I think we want to remain research infrastructures. I think that's also important to many of us. And then Volker's question, why do we need them? And that's where I personally would like to go back to the funding environment that we work in the European level. The fact that science and digitalization is no longer simply just funded in one framework program, be it Horizon 2020, Horizon Europe, but that we see this now also for many infrastructures, funding opportunities coming out of CEF, funding opportunities coming out of DEP and out of the NDICI. There's multi-country projects and there's the resilience funding, and all of those are extremely complex to handle for us. And they require the simple fact that they exist in so many different ways, that the similar calls come out at the same, almost the same time in Digital Europe and in CEF, for example, for the European Common Data Lakes, data spaces. That shows that there is a risk of fragmentation, and I'm very worried about that because science is drawn into all of those digital activities. And equally, these digital activities are going into science and research. We need to have a level of openness and a level of understanding to be able to deal with that. And I'm not sure how many people are thinking about that, but I have the feeling that this is a headache for many. And maybe even on a national environment, it is a headache. So I would be very, very interested to discuss that sort of level of strategy, because I'm asking myself the question, how did we end up here? Why is there this fragmentation in the funding on a European level? And, you know, how do we deal with that? And how do we deal with it? And what influence can we have so that in 2028, 2035 funding environment, it maybe is again less fragmented, because it's the same organizations that need to now look into many, many different, very complex environments.
So thank
Thank
you. Thank you. It means fragmentation has a role. It has an entity, the fragmentation, and it has a role. Natalia, I liked very much the one sentence of yours, but I'm not addressing it for a question, but I just want to state that I liked it. You talked about the coordination of visions, which is really interesting. So please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. I would like to fully support about the fragmentation before, because this is an issue. Okay, so the visions, as I said, is that we are all connecting and federating services. We're connecting and federating people, but we all, the infrastructures and the e-infrastructure parts of the research infrastructures, all at different levels. So we're talking about network. You need different people, you know, who have different backgrounds, and the network has its specific functions and its specific vision. So how do we interconnect? How do we go with 5G, for example? And then you go to computing. So computing is cloud computing, is HPC, then it's public, then it's private, then it's all of this. So what is the vision that we want to sell? And then you come to scholarly communication or the data services. And then I think things are a bit simpler there because the vision is about openness and transparency, and I think we know what we're doing. It's rather easy, but how do we go about it? You know, who do we involve? Who do we not involve? Commercial providers, public providers, at which level at the university? So the vision. We have a vision on open scholarly communication. How does this connect to the data centers? How does this connect to the AI? And this is all interconnected, and we need to bring our visions together. This is what I'm trying to say. We know a bit of our own part of our own yard, but we don't know the whole picture.
So the convergence of vision, for example, visions are is needed. As I experienced, for example, in the universities, the students are not using the infrastructures the universities provide to them for teaching purposes and for educational purposes. They are going on Facebook, they are going on other platforms. Just to make an example, researchers are going passing through YouTube, for example. Why not? I'll give you the floor. What I just as a reaction to Catherine, you mentioned the research infrastructures. We are experiencing now new methods, and I'm talking now from the point of view of e-IRG and not your point of view. So we are experiencing the emerging relevance of the satellite. So you see during this war in Ukraine, without satellite, no internet. Please, Natalia, you wanted to say something.
No, I just want to add that, you know, the vision needs to, one crucial component is the innovation. And we are so busy. I mean, I think I can speak for Open Air, placing our efforts in operations, placing our efforts in coordination of our members, in placing, you know, this collaboration, which is somebody said about the overhead. So we're placing a lot of our effort and a lot of our talent in existing things, and we're forgetting the innovation. So if we don't have, you know, I will not say what we don't have, but this vision, this common vision has to have this innovation aspect as a key component.
Thank you. Who wants to have the floor, or should I?
Just one comment from myself.
Yes, please.
Just on that, just very quickly, I completely agree with you, Natalia. And I think, you know, when I envisage, you know, a coordination function, among us, it must be on the strategic level, because all the ad hoc conversations that have been named here in various conversations, they're always about how do we solve the fire that is burning today in order to have a, you know, a dry place tomorrow, or the fire is gone tomorrow. And we really need to make time as e-infrastructures to look at the strategy, to look at our strategy, and to look really what is the vision here? How do we collaborate, coordinate in a way that we can fulfill the requirements of the European research area, education area, knowledge area? And how do we ensure together that Europe has a lead in the global race? That's what we need to focus on, because if it is again about operations, about technical, about interoperability, I think we'll lose it.
Okay, thank you. Antti, I see your face. Please, I give you the floor. You were talking also, and then Volker, and then Philippe. Antti, my question to you, you were raising the issue of transparency, the bottom-up processes. So can you say some more words about this? Also referring to what has been said until now.
Yeah, thank you. But I also noticed that Volker and Philippe had hands raised before me, but I'll try to be brief. Thank you. With the transparency and openness, I meant that in an infrastructure forum or umbrella forum, it should be open for, let's say, emerging infrastructures or new areas. So it doesn't necessarily look good if there is a selection of initiatives that are operating at the moment and they form the forum. So that was, I think, the main part of saying about openness and also transparency. I don't know if I used the term bottom up, but I wanted to emphasize that I also see that we should start from somewhere, as has been mentioned also by others, not to plan and think about mandates and terms of reference and whatnot for a very long time, but really to concretely start working and discussing together. I also agree with the earlier speakers on the importance of the strategy or strategic level, and what was said that this actually is the area where we probably would benefit from joint discussions and sharing of views to try to understand each other's visions and strategies, and going then for something that is aligned and common for many organizations.
Thank you, Antti. I'd like to give the floor to Philippe. Philippe, you were addressing through the chat issues concerning the collateral topics related to fundings. I'd like to give you the floor now.
Yeah, but Volker raised his hand before me, so I don't want to speak before Volker. Go ahead, Volker. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Philip. Yeah, I just wanted to say, okay, of course, the funding landscape is more difficult perhaps than a couple of years ago, but we have also to acknowledge that there is a lot of funding coming in which hasn't been there before. We have the digital decade in Europe. Perhaps things could be better coordinated, but we have a lot more funding opportunities, not only funding fragmentation, but also a strong push for our work in this context. And I think I see also the responsibility of the EOSC Association, of e-IRG, to figure out for their respective communities where to look at, and we have to do that. For the strategy, I agree, we have to do this together. Do we need a new forum for that? I'm not so sure. We have the ERA, which in principle should rely on our common expertise. We have to build on the communication channels, but I think the bodies are already there and we have to use them in order to express where we want to go.
So Volker, let me comment this. In case that we have these fora, so I try to be neutral now, and the question is always the same: how to develop a common vision, how to develop the coordination of the visions, how can we ensure that there are enough talents attracted to fulfill their. So now the question is not about the possibility of a forum or not the possibility of a forum, but to tackle also the topics that were and the issues that were raised during the contributions. This is my statement is in order to give you again the floor if you have to comment what I'm commenting now.
I have to think first. I'll leave the word to Philip now.
Okay, thank you. Ignacio, I saw your face smiling and trying to say something. Am I right?
Well, I mean, also digesting the information. I mean, I can give my view quickly. So with respect to the level of the strategy and the technicalities, it's clear that a strategy is needed prior to go to the technicalities, but of course, technicalities alignment and the technical solution is really important to have a solution for that is useful for the researchers. And I think that we have forum, we have, I mean, tools to implement these common places. I mean, I don't know if this could help, but also in the ESC association, there was the creation of an operational body for ESFRI, for the ESFRI research infrastructure there. So maybe it could be a place in which we can find these common groups in which this can be discussed. I think that, yeah, we have to ensure that there's a view on this strategy that is converging among the different solutions, and then we have to provide the way to foster the implementation of this at the level of the technical solution. And also, I think that the influence that we could have on the multi-annual report, for example, could also be key to align the views as tries to reduce that multiple players are implementing the services in a different way because there are many funding opportunities, and use this this strategy document and strategic views to align our views from all the community and try to ensure that it goes in a coherent direction.
Thank you, Ignacio. Volker, thank you for your comment. Concerning the fundings, so we are facing the energy crisis. We are, and at the same time, a high inflation. We have discussed the EIRG level on how this is impacting the funding mechanisms. My question to all of you is now, where should this be discussed? What kind of infrastructure should be closed at first or should be funded at first? And how should it how should this discussion be coordinated? Who wants to take the floor? Philippe.
Yeah, well, not to answer your question, but for a previous comment, I think that there is two things that are at stake. Okay, so there are issues with the fragmentation of funding. I agree also with Volker that we have biggest fundings that in previous time, but I think that this is not only an issue for us to answer to that to all this call, all this project call, but 24 years ago, I started to work for the European Commission doing my postdoc at the Joint Research Center. And since that, I work on project for European. Well, I would like to see, before I get retired, some project that moves to operation. And that I'm always working from project to project and project to project and project to project. It doesn't provide a clear view for our stakeholders, for our users, for our industrial users, and for our research users, a clear view of what we are providing. At some given time, we need also to to take some decision, to have a clear roadmap. I think that was the goal of the S3, having the S3 roadmap and deciding on the implementation of some of the research infrastructure. And for these things that are mandatory for all of our users, we need to have more permanent funding and more permanent way of working together. That's not something that is just in the end of the European Commission. I think our member states need also to make more commitment, more long-term commitment. But I think that if we are not able to move some of the activities that we are still doing in a project manner into an operation manner where there is long-time funding and permanent activity that provide permanent service, then it will still be very difficult for all our users, our students, the industrial users, the research users, to navigate in this ecosystem. That's why what I had to say.
Thank you, Philippe. Michel, the floor is yours. Please take it.
Thank you, Paolo. This is a hand which I raised before your question, so it's not about your last question. Sorry for that. It's about the role of the forum. Of course, strategic visions are important all along the data life cycle. So I understand the point raised on storage, computing, and so on, and connectivity. We need visions agreed upon in Europe for that. To me, this is part of the digitalization of research infrastructure issue, which has been raised already in the context of S3 and in the context of e-IRG, and I'm sure this will go on. We need to develop these visions all together. And I'm sure this will happen. Let's be positive. Where I have more questions is about operations and technical coordination. Of course, I'm probably not the best one to comment on this. Maybe to raise the question, yes. I think the forum may have a role also regarding technical coordination between e-infrastructures and also in the context of the operations just mentioned by Philippe. When we look at the current work being done in EOSC Future, this is a mega project key to develop an operational platform for the European Open Science Cloud. And we have made an effort from the Commission side to put many e-infra beneficiaries together with other research infrastructures, some ERICs, just to mention some, together. And I think this is limited because it's just a grant, but it's an approach where we try to combine horizontal and vertical services with some operations in the future in mind. This will end in September 23. So how will we sustain the coordination at technical level between all these players in the future? Is there a role for an e-infra forum able to interact with other fora? Question to you. I think composability of services is still a big issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michel. I would like to give the floor then as next to Jana for a statement, then to Natalia, and then I have also a question to Stefan Hanslik. So first, Jana, please.
Is it a concluding statement or something else? Or research or energy crisis?
A concluding statement, yeah.
Oh, yes, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. I have enjoyed very much listening to the discussion, and as I keep learning also about e-infrastructures, it's not my domain. I'm also grateful from this aspect. Now, I very much agree with, I support the opinion of Michel that he last voiced. I think that it's very important to have vertical and horizontal infrastructures working together in order to hear on one side the needs of the user community, which would be basically the vertical infrastructures for several of you, for several of horizontal infrastructures, and also to develop new to optimize on the services. Now, whether what would be the position of the forum and the position of the forum within the in connection to the EOSC, which Volker was raising. Now, I cannot comment on this. Basically, I can firmly reconfirm my earlier statement that it's important to have a voice of stakeholder community. Whether your community thinks that it's well represented and that it can contribute and address the questions coming either from e-IRG or from S3, for example, through some part of EOSC or some other established network, that's good enough. You don't need another forum. But if you feel that that's not, then you do. So in my opinion, this would be my pragmatic approach. But this, of course, is a bottom-up thinking that needs to be done by your research infrastructures. Thank you.
Thank you, Jana. Natalia?
I think I will try to address what Michel and Volker said about, why do we need, a forum and why don't we go to bodies, existing bodies? At least in my experience is that, first of all, we need a forum. Again, I don't know what this forum will be in order for us to understand each other and the boundaries and what we can do together. So this is number one. Then with the existing fora, the existing initiatives, I find that our message is diluted a lot because there are many, many tensions from many other players. So where do does each infrastructure position itself, or do we want to position horizontal services as a whole? This is my question. And then on what Michel said, I think EOS Future has been an excellent example, but it's a mega projects, and mega projects are really hard to manage. Having run projects for ages, I think, with the new consortium, you need at least 6 months to get to know each other, to see how you work. And this mega project that includes everything, under the sky may not be, the best way to have this coordination. Okay, this coordination. So projects like these are good. Mega projects may not be the best solution.
Thank you, Natalia. Sergio, do you want to say something or it's okay? No, I'm not joking. I'm asking seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, first of all, on the reason to have a dedicated forum, I support what Natalia said. It is also our view that we need more dedicated space for us to formulate our joint messages to bring into EOSC or into other contexts. And then I wanted to make a statement to pick up on the discussion on the coordination of visions, because each of us we work with user communities, we make our vision on how we're going to change their life, but at the end we are a piece of their experience. I think what we need to do, something we did some years ago or once, but we didn't keep doing, I think, unless it's happening in some project I'm not aware, that is more to design end-to-end user experience that take into consideration, okay, different type of stakeholders, so the long tail, the small organized group, the international collaboration, which is more fluid or more the organized research communities, how they work today, and how, in our view, that we will gonna change their life in 10 years' time. If we make a collection of these user journeys of today and 10 years. And we agree, all of them, with our users. Then, okay, that's our alignment of visions and the way we can make these changes. While at the moment, I think we are working a lot on architectures and policies, protocols, etc. But at the end, what's going to be the end-to-end change or new life of the users in 10 years?
Thank you, Sergio. Before I will use my privilege to close the session, I'd like to ask the upcoming e-IRG chair, Stefan Hanslik, if he has some words to say in this discussion of today.
Thank you, Paolo, and special thanks to all the speakers and panelists, which had very good impulses for today, I guess. But let me stick it, and I cannot give you any proper solution for the discussion, but I think it is all about cooperation, yeah. And it's like Edgar Hoover said in his first statement when founding the FBI, the most effective weapon against crime is cooperation, and he was completely right. And we are in the same situation. And secondly, and it was from time to time, it was mentioned also that there is this question mark about how can we stick in from a discussion into a concrete cooperation, into a collaboration. And I think I also agree with the idea not to do it with a completely new forum with its own objective. We also came to the conclusion that it is about the common vision, but the common objectives, and there we can stick on those parts which are, let's say, handleable for all the groups which are existing. And it's I think also a sign when I look at the screen and also in the audience, we have, it's my opinion, the most important groups we have sitting here together on a table, and we are communicating with each other. And it's also a very, I think, intensive discussion about the objectives of each of the groups. And let's say the degree of equilibrium between the groups is relatively high, but it can be increased. And this should be done with very concrete actions, I guess. And to be honest, I'm thinking about these actions on a daily basis because the challenges are quite big. But I think we can start with examples also. For example, when looking at the problematics with the energy crisis, which was mentioned before, we could choose a common approach and go together with this, and also with the with giving an overview also for our funders and not only for the researchers about who is doing what is going on in Europe, how do we deal with this kind of fragmentation. We had this discussion at the beginning, and I think we have some good models where we can rely on, but we can do some more steps. But this is all for the moment. Thank you.
So thank you. Now my closing remarks. So I'd like to thank all the participants for their contribution, their authentic contributions. So thank you very much. My closing remark is this. So you have remarked that while you were speaking, I was using my computer. We are 5 people in background. We are collecting the information. And so I'd like to thank also the e-IRG support project for serving us in this deal. We are collecting and gathering what has been said until now. And it is our duty as e-IRG delegates to discuss what has been said now today in the e-IRG closed delegates meeting, which will take place on next Wednesday. And then you will receive a feedback after our analysis. And of course, we will continue our internal discussion because we also have this discussion in an internal way during the e-IRG delegates meeting. So I wish you all a good afternoon to the speakers. Thank you very much. And concerning the break, now the next session should start now. We will start it in 10 minutes time sharp, so at 16:10. So thank you very much.